Hi everyone, so we are at our final English lesson of the week. This is Friday's English lesson for the 22nd of January, and we've done it. We're at the last paragraph today we're writing. We're finishing our story. So our success criteria looks like this today. We're going to carry on using that speech and conversation between Howard and the thief. We are going to use lots of dramatic effects because something very dramatic is going to happen. We are going to carry on with our show not tells about how each of our characters are feeling, so what they are feeling and how their body language is showing it. We're going to carry on with our 5 senses and not think as much about the smell and taste, but more about hear, see and touch. We're going to carry on using similes, metaphors and personification to really immerse our reader, and we're going to finish our paragraph. So I'm really pleased with how you're getting on with this narrative and your paragraphs. So it's been really nice to tie a nice little bow in it, and then this will be the end. And I think we've done something like 8 paragraphs, something like that. So really well done to you. So our climax that we talked about the other day, our climax was something was stolen. That was your choice. Mine was the treasure chest. Yours could have been the death mask. It could have been Tutankhamun. It could have been treasure. It could have been absolutely anything. We've done the climax. And then yesterday you showed me the chase scene. So that was our fall in action. So we were Howard Carter and he was chasing after the thief, trying to get his item back. And today we are doing the resolution, but it's going to be your choice how the story ends, okay? So something is going to conclude our story. It might end on a cliffhanger, it might end up ending nicely, and it's all everyone's friends again. Who knows? It is your choice. So as I said, it's up to you how your story is going to end. You could go in lots of different directions. So you could have had, for example, that Howard catches up to the thief and gets away with the goods. You could have that Howard never catches the thief and he's got his treasure forever. You could have that the thief tips everything in the Nile. You could have that the thief gets eaten by a crocodile. You could even get that Howard gets eaten by a crocodile in the Nile. You could absolutely end your story however you will like, using your creative imagination and thinking about how you would like your story to end. So I'm going to talk through my model text, how my story ends. This in no way means that you have to end your story as I have. It's just an example to show you the kind of thing that I'm looking for, the kind of detail, the drama, and the suspense that I'm wanting for your story to finish on. So I'm going to read it to you. You can write down notes that you like. You can just read along with me. You can listen, try and find any of the things that you can see in the success criteria and have a think. What do you like about it? So, finally, after what felt like miles of running, Howard had caught up to the thief. Now he was able to get a closer look at him. He was young, actually a child. He was wearing torn blue shorts, a white muddy vest top, and, to Howard's disbelief, no shoes. He made eye contact. He could hardly believe it. It was at that point he realized he was looking into the soul of the water boy, the same boy that had tripped on a troublesome sunken step just 2 weeks before and led them to the historic discovery. The boy panted. "It was I who found the tomb. I am Egyptian, so it should stay here." He tried to inhale sharply whilst grasping his breath. They were now both stood on the banks of the River Nile. The thrashing water coursed below. Rocks were collapsing from the eroded banks, and that had been battered from the overflow just days before. With their balance unsteady, Howard made a final leap towards the chest, like a jack-in-the-box, for his reward. The boy's instant impulse was to clutch the chest as hard as he could. With an automatic jolt of his arm, thousands of the priceless diamonds hurled themselves from their home, and they were swallowed by the River Nile. "Now look what you've done. Give it here, boy," Howard demanded. "If Egypt cannot have these artifacts, then no one can." Looking down, the boy stretched out his arms. All fear evaporated from his body, and he had never been more sure of anything than what he was about to do. He released the chest from his embrace and it plunged into the roaring current. Howard fell to his knees. His shoulders sank and he cradled his head in his hands. The chest was gone forever. So, here is my model text again with some extra of my success criteria here. We're going to go through it like we always do. I want to really pay your attention to who I have made the thief. You do not have to uncover the thief and tell me who he is. I've made mine the water boy, and I've given him a bit of a motive that he wants to take it because he wants it to stay in Egypt. Like we're going to think about next week about the debate between should it stay or should it be able to go to different museums. So we're going to think about that next week. However, the water boy was the one who found it, so I gave him a little bit of motive to be the thief. You do not need to uncover the thief. It could be a random person, it could be I don't know, it could be absolutely anybody. You do not need to tell me who it is, but I do want you to describe them for me, just like we did with Howard Carter. I would like to see what he looks like. I would like to be able to imagine him. I've also ended mine with none of them die, they lose the treasure chest because the boy decides to put it in the Nile. So no one gets eaten by a crocodile in mine, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen in yours. So we're going to go through it together and then see what you like and see what I've put in successfully. So let's start with our usual speech to further the action. So as you can see, I've dripped it through the paragraphs. It's not conversation, he said, then she said, then he said, then she said, because that's quite boring to read. However, I have just dribbled it through to make sure that it is still carrying on the action and it's identifying the motive of the water boy. So we've got, it is I who found the tomb, I am Egyptian, so it stay here. So right here I've got a motive. I've got a nice verb about how he said it, and then I've got some show not tells here about him trying to inhale. I have this section down here. Now look what you've done, give it here. So that's how I imagine Howard to talking about him being a boy, being quite disrespectful. If Egypt cannot have any of these artifacts, then no one can. So that you can tell that that's the boy. I don't need that the boy said. You can tell that that's the conversation that the boy is having with him. And then I've only got 3, but they all do something to tell my reader about the motive of my thief. Next one, we're going to have dramatic effect. So this is kind of mixes with all of these in a certain way. Something that keeps me on the edge of my seat. Something that makes me think about what's going to happen next. So I've got, they were both stood on the banks of the river Nile, the thrashing water cursed below. So I've got, they're stood on the banks, what's going to happen? They've got the water below, I don't know what's going to happen next. Are they going to fall in? Is he going to push him in? I don't know. And then again, I carry that on, that unsteady thought about the balance not being quite right. I've also got Howard made the final leap, so he's leaping towards the chest. I don't know what's going to happen. Then the boy's instant impulse was to do something else. So I've got that continuity of, what's going to happen? Is there a fight? Is someone going to die? And it makes me really keep reading. I've also got this bit. He released the chest from his embrace and it plunged into the roaring current. So quite a short, nice sentence that just explains to me what has happened. Next, I'm going to think about my show not tells. I'm going to do those in yellow. So anything that the body language says to me about how they're feeling. So I've got him being able to have a closer look and realised in a sunken step. So nothing really, this is my descriptive paragraph, so nothing really in my first paragraph apart from he made eye contact, but that obviously tells me he was looking into the soul. Here we go. He was looking into the soul of the water boy. He wasn't really looking into the soul of him. He was looking into his eyes. So that's also a nice metaphor in there, but it tells me he was like staring at him. I've got that the boy was trying to inhale, so obviously he's been running quite quickly. He was grabbing his chest, telling me that he's out of breath. I've got that their balance was unsteady, so that's a nice section where I know that, they might fall. Howard made the final leap forward, so he's destined to do it. He clutched the chest as hard as he could, and an automatic jolt, their home was swallowed. So here I've got all the fear evaporated from his body. And then finally, Howard fell to his knees, his shoulders sank and he cradled his head. So what emotion does that tell me? It tells me he's devastated, tells me he's horrified, tells me he is like in remorse, he's in grieving kind of mode. So that's a lot of show not tell there. Five senses, as I spoke about before, we're not really smelling anything, we're not really tasting everything. It's more about what we can see, and even if what we can hear. I don't think I've even put in what we can hear. I've done what we can touch, about the boy holding on to the to clutch the chest, but I don't feel like I've done any else. So maybe that's an up level for me that I can maybe talk about, that they can hear the river. Maybe did I put that in? River Nile, the thrashing water. There we go. I've got a little section that he can hear the water, and he can hear the erosion banks, and it's battered from the. So he can hear obviously the water really hitting that banks quite hard. So maybe I can do another up level. Maybe I can say about what the chest feels like. I have here some similes. I definitely have like in there somewhere. I've got like a jack in a box, springing. See if we can spot any more. No, I don't think I've got any more. Maybe I could add a few more in there about how Howard was in disbelief. Metaphors, I've got a few in there as well. About that he wasn't like or as something, he was it. Like there's no automatic about it. He was that. He was a lion hunting his prey, like I said yesterday. And then finally we've got some personification. So see if I've definitely got some about the diamonds. The priceless diamonds hurled from their home. So if you're hurled, they threw from their home, and they were swallowed by the River Nile. Obviously the River Nile can't swallow, but that tells me that it's like engulfed it, it's took it down, so we can't see it anymore, we can't get those diamonds anymore. And then he released it from it plunged into the roaring current, the chest was gone forever. So here I've got some lovely to finish my whole paragraph, what was going to happen. I know maybe something happens to the boy later on, I don't know, but that is where I'm going to finish all my paragraphs. It's kind of a bit on the cliffhanger, but it has been resolved that the item that was stolen from the chest has been put into the River Nile. So maybe he goes back to the tomb, but I'm just going to leave it there and still leave my audience wondering, oh, what's going to happen next, or how could it move on from here, or what's going to happen to the boy. So that's a nice, well-rounded, I've finished my chase scene, I've come to a resolution or a conclusion that the boy has put the chest into the water. Again, yours can be completely different. They could chase, they could catch each other, they could have a conversation, one of them could get eaten, one of them could be pushed into the River Nile, one of them could be squashed by something, I don't know. I know that a lot of you are going to make one of them die because you're quite murderous in that sense when it comes to your writing. You all love a gruesome ending, and that's fine as well. Or if he talks them down and they become friends, is fine as well. Completely up to you. This is your writing. I want to see what you come up with. However, I do want a description of the thief. So here's your step 1. Your step 2, I want some speech in there between the conversation. I don't want he said this, then she said this, and he said this. Boring. I want some nice verbs. I want it dotted and scattered throughout your paragraph. Doesn't mean that it goes one after another. I want it punctuated correctly, please, which means you have your speech marks and you have your punctuation inside your speech mark. And then I also want that obviously something happens, something goes wrong. Let's do it green. Something's going wrong with the item that's been stolen. And then finally your conclusion. So how will it end? Whose favour will it end in? Will it end in Howard's, where he gets his thing back, where he gets his treasure back? Will it end in the thief's, where he goes away with it? Or will it end in no one's and one of them dies, or both of them die? Or I don't know. Your choice. Your choice. So I can't wait to read them today. and I hope you have fun with your final paragraph before we start on something new next week. I want to say thank you and a massive well done to everybody's paragraphs this week. You've been absolutely amazing. I've really loved reading them and giving you some extra up levels like I would do in class to really move that story and help your writing come along. So good job, everybody.